For it's time! It's time! It's Vader time!
How about that, JD?
You know, when you listen to that, when you listen to a remix version of that, you really kind of start to realize how much of Jim Johnston's stuff really sounded the same.
It might as well have been the Ultimate Warriors theme or Stone Cold's theme or
Dude, I saw someone did a remix of Stone Cold's and Razor Ramones, and it's the same
yeah,
freaking song. Like the
yeah.
tempo is just up in the Steve Austin, but it's the same song. I was like, wow, I never realized that before. Like,
Yeah, and that's why everybody's like, "Oh, Jim Johnston for the Hall of Fame," and I don't disagree. But I was like, I think people overrate him a little
I
bit.
agree.
But look, AC/DC, all their songs sound the same, right?
They
But
all
they were
sound
also,
awesome.
yeah, they're all smash hits. He does have some like pretty cool themes. Like what he did was actually perfect for wrestling. Very simple
Mhm.
beats, simple tracks, that people can walk out to.
I'm a bigger fan of using popular music. Like one of my favorite things about the
Yeah.
80s is that like the fantastic ones would come out to Sharp Dressed Man, the Road Warriors come out to Iron Man. I like Hulk Hogan with Eye of the Tiger better than I
Hmm.
like him with Real American. I think Real American's a dumb song.
Yeah.
I don't know, like Flair when Flair has that first WWE run and he comes out to the knockoff of also Spokes There Enthusiast, like something's not right. Like you need that real version of it to have flair, and he's the only guy who was able to do it for that long. Like Carrie with Tom Sawyer. Like I just
Yeah.
prefer that. And again, there's some great Jim Johnson songs. Don't get me wrong. His Jake the Snake Roberts theme is like one of my favorite things I've ever heard in my life.
Mhm.
I think I
Yeah.
honestly, I truly believe that's his best theme. I truly believe that.
Yeah, in a perfect world, you would be able to get like just popular music, but man, those record companies want a lot of money for that stuff,
They
and it
sure
appears.
do.
And Tony Khan is really the only guy that's willing to bankroll. Like he paid Ted Nugent money for Stranglehold just so the Von Erich kids can come out on Ring of Honor television.
I know. I couldn't
So,
believe it. They didn't
yeah,
use that pretty close knockoff that MLW used because it was like a Jimmy Hart level. Like, wow, this is a good knockoff. Like, this is almost it. But yeah, they paid Ted Nugent for Stranglehold, and he paid Europe for Final Countdown. And
yeah,
Europe knows that they've got nothing else in the chamber but this one song. So they make if
mhm.
you want it, you gotta pay for it.
Yeah. They pay a lot for it. And I'm like, Tony, you know, Dale Oliver's right there. Like he's in your company. Like he
I think
works for you.
I think Ruckus does okay stuff. I don't hate
He
Ruckus's
does.
music.
Yeah, no, he does. But what I'm saying is Dale Oliver also kind of a king of
It's true. Yeah. Oh
knockoff
yeah, it's
themes.
true. Yeah.
Like we were talking about it in the on the Voices of Wrestling Discord in the TNA thread, and somebody shared the Kevin Nash one, and it was like the worst knockoff of Still Dre by Dr. Dre that you've ever heard in your life. It was it was crazy. And then of course like his greatest song that he ever did,
I
Marvelous Me, is like an exact replica of an Eagles track, right?
I love Marvelous Me.
Me
I
too.
remember when we did our Scott Hall tribute show, and we started with Marvelous Me, and I think I
Mhm.
listened to that song every day for like 2 weeks after that because I had
Yeah.
forgotten just how awesome Marvelous Me was.
So
And
I ripped that from YouTube so that way I could put it on my phone because it's not something you can find on Spotify.
no,
So I ripped it from YouTube and I put the MP3 on my phone so that way I could run to it. Because I
it
just it's like it's just a good track. I
it is
like
a
it.
good track. It is. It's probably the best TNA track, period. And it was
Yeah.
on episode 1. It was on the first ever TNA. It's like Scott Hall shows up, boom, Marvelous Me. And I think they peaked with that one. That never got better.
Yeah. Well, TNA had some good
He did.
they had
His
some
Marvelous Me is
decent.
really good.
Yeah. But I mean, of course, I'm pretty partial to the AJ Styles one too because that's
Ready to
been
fly.
our Brace for Impact theme for a long time.
Nobody has figured that out except for you and I. Like
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone calls like, hey, that's AJ Styles' remix. Nobody ever calls us out for that.
You know, we now work with one Garrett Kidney from Voices of Wrestling, and you would think that he at least would have peeked in on one of the Brace for Impact shows. Either he hasn't, or he is just not a snitch. And if he's not a snitch, respect.
I'm willing to bet he probably hasn't checked out our show, quite frankly. This is the Patreon, so I can say that. Yeah, I don't think Garrett Kidney knows who we are. So yeah.
Well, no, he knows who I am because I think he's quite annoyed
are.
by me. Yeah, he's quite annoyed by me because in the TNA
in
the TNA thread and in the fuck you in the TNA thread and in the Slack, I am pretty tough on TNA. So
well, that's part of the job, man.
Yeah.
You are one of the most realistic TNA fans I know. I appreciate you're having these these tough talks with TNA fans right now, telling them that Okada is not coming to TNA. Someone has to be the voice of reason.
So I put it's actually, well, by the time people listen to this, because we're doing this show on Sunday night, by the way. I actually clipped, I made a short, and it's just me and telling TNA fans, say it with me. Okada is not signing with TNA. And then I go, okay, now say it again. And then if you start to think that Okada is signing with TNA, I want you to go to your local middle school and I want you to write this on your chalkboard 5,000 fucking times so you can get it through your head that Okada is not coming to TNA.
Well, I'll tell you for a fact, as a teacher, that chalkboards are not in use anymore.
Wow, am I that old?
They call it cancer. You get lung
really?
cancer. Yeah.
Wow. As a guy who studies carcinogens for a living, I did not know that one.
Yeah,
I guess probably with the chalk. The
chalk.
Yeah.
Dry erase. Everyone either does dry erase boards or smart boards are big now. I don't have a smart board in my class. I have a projector connected to my lab, to my computer. And it sucks. The throw is terrible. Like the kids are like, Mr. Leaf, I can't see what that says. I'm like, I know. Our tech department is dumb. So yeah.
Yeah, so if you guys notice, we had a different theme this week, and I'm going to try to do stuff like that more often for overtime because I've just been using the AJ Styles theme, and the guy who did the AJ Styles theme is named Innes, Josh Innes on YouTube. Yeah, he's cool. He actually, like, JD hit him up on Instagram, and the guy was like, yeah, use it all you want. And so occasionally, and we've really gotten use out of it. And so occasionally, depending on the theme, I might just go to his YouTube channel and play one of his tracks. So and what I'll do is I'll actually link that video here in the notes of this one. So but he did the
back when we were in Fight Game, that was our theme song.
Yeah,
like when we were Brace for Impact, and even when we were Mike and JD, that was our theme song until we jumped over to Voices. And we have a game, as I like to call it.
Yeah, it's the whitest possible way to say it, a game. So I use the Vader theme because this is we've done like a few episodes of Overtime just on Sting. Like we did an entire episode on the Sting's feud with the Black Scorpion, the mystery of the Black Scorpion, and then we did another entire episode on Sting versus Ric Flair. Which I think I don't think there's really an argument to be made. That's his greatest feud, right?
No argument.
Yeah, there's no argument. And JD and I believe it was Muse. We were just in our chat, and I think we were just talking about kind of like Sting's greatest feuds, and it was kind of leading towards Sting's final match at AEW Revolution coming up, and we were tossing around ideas for his greatest feuds, and one of mine, and we were naming a bunch of them. One of mine was Vader, so that's the theme of today. But we're actually going to do a series of these, just kind of talking about Sting's greatest feuds, not really counting them down because Flair's already number one. So in no particular order, we're going to be talking about Sting's feud with Vader, man, or Sting's greatest feuds, and this week it's going to be Vader.
Yeah, this is if Flair's one, I think you can easily call Vader 2, if not 1A. I mean, it's pretty awesome stuff. Like in a fallow, I'm using that word, using it in super speak. I'm using it here too. In a fallow W, this was kind of the lifeblood of the company. Yeah,
because their greatest matches occurred from 92 to 93, and which was a very dark period in WCW, and it was not the fault of these guys because these were big time matches and they were awesome matches, and they had such great chemistry together. And I always felt that Sting was at his best when he was fighting monsters, because he's no small guy, but back in the day he was not a super heavyweight. So He was kind of WCW's version of kind of like a mix between Hogan and Warrior, except he could really fucking work. He was super, super athletic and drew like tons of sympathy from the audience. So when people were beating them up, they actually would get upset about it and they would care. And he did a great job at that. And I just felt like he was at his best in the ring with big guys, and there was no better opponent for him in that vein than Big Van Vader.
Between Sting and Warrior, when they both got in the business, neither one of them was any good. Sting's Watts territory, unlike Warrior, who went to Texas. I think that actually had a huge impact on Sting, because like in the Watts territory, you had to work, and Sting learned how to work.
Mm-hmm.
And then he stayed in WCW, the working man territory, right? He was in there with Ric Flair just about every night for years, right? And then everyone he worked with was a good worker. You can't not be good. Like now he's 60, tremendous still. Knows how to get a reaction from a crowd, like a visceral, like reaction from a crowd.
Yes, he does. And he has such great timing and great instincts, and we'll get into the individual matches. But I actually wanted to talk a little bit about Vader, because when Vader died, I never really had the opportunity to do a tribute show to Vader. So I think this is going to be my opportunity, because he was absolutely, without a doubt, one of my favorite wrestlers. And I loved him as a kid. I just thought he was great. He was on Boy Meets World, so that was huge to me. And he was just this great monster in WCW. And then, of course, he came over to WWF, and he had the one big match with Shawn Michaels. He had a match with Vader, and then he had a match with the Undertaker. And after that, they just gave up on him. But I was able to go back and watch a lot of his Japan stuff. And one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time is WCW Great American Bash 1990, and that actually what had the debut of Vader. Do you remember who he beat up?
Think?
Yes, Tom Zink, the Z-Man himself, and he squashed him in just a couple of minutes, and they really were able to get him over on one night as a monster, very, very much like New Japan did whenever he came over from AWA. And they put the Vader gimmick on him, and he beat the shit out of Inoki in just a couple of minutes after Inoki had finished the title match. Started
a riot in Sumo Hall, right? People were lighting their pillows, because in Sumo Hall you sit on pillows, right? That's traditional sumo. So people were so mad that when Vader beat Inoki, they literally pelted the ring, flaming pillows. True story.
Yeah. He had such a great run in New Japan, and then he was so big there. Like, he started out in AWA, but AWA was on death's door when he was there as kind of as just Leon White, and then so he needed to get out of there.
Hey, Mike, you want to hear a fun coincidence? Do you know who the Big Van Vader gimmick was designed for?
One Ultimate Warrior.
One Jim Hellwig. He went to the Fed in Japan.
Yeah, honestly, that turned out to be great for New Japan, I would say, because he was. He was not willing to learn how to work, and when Vader went over there, he had a little bit of time in AWA, but and he had some matches with some good wrestlers there, but he was pretty raw by the time he got to New Japan, and by the time he got to New Japan, he had to really learn how to work, and he became one of the best workers in the world at that time.
I don't think I'm crazy when I say this. I think he's the greatest big man of all time.
I don't think that's crazy at all. In fact, I don't know who would be a close second, to be honest with you.
Like, I became a W fan in 1992. That's when I first found WCW on TBS. And one of the first matches I remember watching was Big Van Vader just beating people up. In 93, he has and that's the same year Yokozuna has the WWF title. And I would always go, and I would hear people go, "Oh, Yokozuna is so big and agile, and it's just." Man, fuck him. This guy's fat and boring. Go watch Vader. Vader's doing moon. That I became a little snarky fan at that point, and it's just Vader was my fantasy wrestling. Vader was. I love Van Vader so much. Like,
JD.
Damn it! It's doing the thing again. It's doing the thing again.
Can you exit and come back in, and I'll just keep it going?
Yeah, you keep going. I'll be back.
Okay. All right. So JD's country internet keeps going out on him, so we lost him for a second. So yeah, so he came in and he got over super fast in New Japan because Inoki knew exactly what to do. Inoki, their top star, who was a legend, he was already a legend at that point because he'd been on top for fucking almost 30 years or whatever it was. And he comes in, he destroys Inoki, and then he hit the ground running, man. And then he's having just match after match, just awesome matches. Like he has that great match with Stan Hansen where Stan Hansen knocks his eyeball out, and he's just a tremendous monster over there, and he's super over. And then of course WCW brings him in, and he's kind of a part timer in WCW. Whenever they bring him in, they don't bring him in full time. And but he was impressive right away. And then by the time he becomes full time, we're like he's still 90 91 Vader is more of a part-time guy. His focus is more in Japan. By 92 he's more of a WCW guy at that point, and they had really gotten behind him. And even though he was still keeping a lot of his New Japan dates, WCW had become more of a priority because they're going to be pushing him. And which takes us to 1992's Great American Bash match between Sting and Vader, and they're in the main event. It's for the world title. Sting's defending his title against Big Van Vader, and I remember this kind of vaguely as a kid because when I was really little, even though we had TBS and we would watch WCW. I was more of a WWF fan just because that's just what I had been watching since I was a baby. But I remember Sting and Vader from 1992. And, I think everybody thought that this was going to be the moment that Vader becomes like their top guy. He defeats Sting at the Great American Bash in the main event for the world title. We're thinking he's going to be their top guy, when in reality he was just meant to be a transitional champion to Ron Simmons, because as one would have it, Bill Watts had taken over the territory, had taken over WCW, and he wanted to push Ron Simmons, and so he as a babyface, and he couldn't have Ron Simmons beat Sting, so he had Vader beat Sting, and then Ron Simmons would then beat Vader. Oh, I lost JD again. I thought I had JD there for a second. So let me go to the match. So the match was, tremendous. It was, it got 4 stars by Uncle Dave, and it got a 7.83 rating from Cage Match. And we'll go to some of the comments here. Here in Cage Match, this guy gave it an 8, and he said Sting and Vader were destined to fight each other. The crowd is wildly behind Sting, and this match is a banger. So I love Crow Sting, but Surfer Sting is at his best during this era, even if his storylines weren't. And then another guy says, this is my favorite match ever, and was such a breath of fresh air to see a rule breaker win without cheating against the top guy. Yeah. I mean, he beat Sting clean in this match. So the finish comes when Sting actually goes to do a Stinger splash, and then he ends up Vader moves essentially, and then Sting hits his eyeball on the post, takes basically the Sergeant Slaughter bump. Vader went to go do the 3 count after that with blood all over his face, or Sting had blood all over his face. Vader went to go pin him. Sting kicks out, and then Vader hits the powerbomb, boom, and then just pins him clean. So JD, more memories of early WCW Vader, and then tell me what your memories are of the Great American Bash match between Sting and Vader.
My early memories of Vader, and please, I hope God this freaking works. My early memories of Vader are just watching this big man do things that big guys on the other channel didn't do. Right?
Yeah.
Moonsaults. He beat up guys violently. Like you'd read Pro Wrestling Illustrated and you heard about Joe Thurman, this guy who Vader legitimately broke his back with a power bomb. Right, he would do I remember the Vader public workouts where Vader would come out there and would beat up robbers at once. He was the champion. Like that, the Vader 1993 run is to me like the template for what a heel monster champion should be. And WCW never had a guy like that, right? Because they had the heel champs, but it was Flair, right? It was the guy who would always kind of outsmart the baby face or sneak the wins, or just the heel champion. Man, not Vader. Vader beat you in submission. He just beat the shit out of people. I love the guy. He's awesome.
Yeah, and and that was on full display during this match because Sting was such a great babyface, and
Oh,
Vader just
phenomenal.
played such a badass monster heel, and he didn't like in WCW he didn't have any chicken shit heel in him, right? He was just
No.
he was bad motherfucker here. When he gets to WWF, they make him into a chicken shit, which totally killed his aura, you know. But
Because that's what
he did,
Vince had to do. Vince had to make
yeah,
everybody the same fucking heel. We couldn't have anybody of threat as a champion, as a heel champion until Triple H. It makes me so mad. I remember I broke. This is when I stopped watching WWF in the 90s when Vader ran away from Shawn Michaels.
yeah,
I'm like,
of
I'm
all
done. I
people,
can't. Michaels. I
yeah.
hated babyface Shawn Michaels. Like I'm like that's when I just stopped watching WWF for a long time. This 450-pound monster is running away from this 200-pound crybaby. Like I couldn't I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it.
Yeah, yeah. So he was just he was a bad motherfucker heel, and he would just pummel guys, and he did that to Sting, man. This match was like this was a New Japan style match in WCW. It was just super hard hitting, which makes sense because both guys worked New Japan during this time, and then Bill Watts is leading the charge here, so he
Bill
wanted everything
Watts.
to look real. Yeah, yeah, and that's what Bill Watts did, and so that's what they did in the Mid South territory. So, and Vader's perfect for like a Bill Watts like heavyweight champion. If you look at the Mid South champions that he had, he was like right in that vein.
Football player.
Yes. Yeah. And a good football player. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I meant to bring this up. Do you know where so he went to Colorado and then he got drafted
Mm-hmm.
by the Rams. Do you know where Vader was born actually?
No, I don't.
Oh, I'm breaking news. Well, it's not breaking news. I heard him tell the story several times,
He's
but
dead, so it's not quite
yeah,
breaking.
he's dead, and he was born in like 1955 or some shit. So, but but no, he was born in Compton, California, and he
Oh,
was
no
born
kidding.
and raised it. Yeah, he was born and raised in Compton, California. He didn't move to Colorado till later in life. But
I had
yeah,
no idea.
he's like an OG from Compton. That guy.
I'm gonna have to
It's pretty
assume
funny to hear.
Compton was different in the 50s.
Yes,
I'm
much
gonna have to.
different.
Yeah, it's kind of cool though.
Yeah,
I'm surprised he never steered
yeah.
into that. I'm from
You never
Compton.
steered into it. You never steered into it like on TV for his wrestling character, but whenever he was on Conan's podcast back in the day, he totally steered into that.
Did he
He's
really? I
like,
never
"I'm a
heard of
tough
him.
guy." Yeah. This was back when Vader was kind of like going crazy on Twitter and
I
warring
remember
with
those
Will
days.
Ospreay and all that, and
Mhm.
like he was kind of melting down. This is like a couple years before he died, so
CTE.
but
We legitimately think Vader probably was dealing with some CTE toward the end.
Probably a little bit of that. Probably some depression and some
Mm,
alcohol and pills. I think at one point he
mm,
like took a naked picture of himself and posted it online. So, like, yeah, dude was brother was going through it.
mm.
Um,
That's sad.
but yeah. So the JD, I was telling the audience the cage match rating for this match for Vader versus Sting, 1992, is 7.83, and it got 4 stars from one Uncle Dave Meltzer. So, that's a pretty damn good rating.
Back when Dave, let's be honest, Dave is much more liberal with the 5 than he was in this era, right?
Yeah.
So if you have
Yeah.
4, a North American 4 is something.
Yeah, that is absolutely something. So, like I was saying, the match was tremendous match. I think everybody thought that this was going to be the starting off point of Vader being like their top guy. What he was really just a transitional champion to get the belt over to Ron Simmons. And what was a great moment, but ultimately Ron Simmons' title run was a complete failure.
Complete doesn't draw. Bill Watts didn't understand his territory yet. It's funny, because Bill Watts puts the belt back on Vader in January of
Yeah,
'93. So Ron
yeah,
has the belt from August '92 to January '93, and then it was off the races. Like Bischoff kept the belt on Vader to move. Man, it's a great match. We're talking about Vader right now. That's Starrcade '93. I'm of the mind that that's the last truly great Flair match.
That was pretty amazing, and it's one of my all-time favorite Flair matches. I still liked his 94 matches with Hogan with
They're
Hogan, and I really like him. But I just thought that him and Hogan had great chemistry, and I thought those
they
matches were
did.
tremendous.
It's a different. I just love the story behind it because Flair for the first excuse me, for the first time in his career is this dog baby face, right?
Yeah.
And the whole show of 93, Starrcade 93 is basically the feud Flair, like he's with his family and he's like, I might die tonight. And they're all like, we know you're not gonna come home.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
just it's a great story and just a one of my favorite matches ever. Like it's
Yeah,
great.
well, and the pay-per-view was great, and it was so funny because it was such the opposite way that they promoted Flair than what he had ever been promoted throughout his entire career, where they promoted him like he was Ricky Steamboat.
They did.
Because
They really did.
they brought his family, his wife, whom he had very likely had cheated on just the night before. Like they, try to make
Yeah.
him into this like innocent,
In the
sweet family.
locker room,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah, innocent, sweet, like family babyface Ric Flair coming out to and put his career on the line. It was tremendous. But the year before that, Vader also headlined Starrcade in 1992. He was in the main event against Sting, or I guess it would have been the co-main event. And
Battle Bowl.
it was the co-main event, Battle Bowl. This was for the King of Cable. He battled Sting with the King of Cable for the King of Cable. Sting gets his win back in a match that Uncle Dave had rated 4.5 stars, and Cage Match has at 8.45. This whole match was fucking great, and it was another. So there was a moment in the Great American Bash match where like Vader is across the ropes in the corner, like on belly down, and then Sting goes under him and then lifts him up for a Samoan drop, but he's selling the Samoan drop and like going like shaking, getting the crowd behind him, and then he just dramatically falls on his back. Well, in this match, they do this. They do it differently, where he's doing the same thing. Finally gets the Samoan drop, but powers him up and then just slams him back down, kind of as like an ode to the previous match. Crowd was just going insane for this whole freaking match. Sting gets the W here after getting the shit kicked out of him literally the whole match, but the crowd was so on fire for it.
So, like I told you, I became a fan of WCW in the November of '92, right? So I following cable was like my first bit of WCW fandom, right? Because I remember that I turned on cable tournament, and then that saw later in the pre-broadcast there was Vader in the King of Com and the cable tournament. I didn't have the background; I was just a new fan, and like so, this was that feud to the King of Cable match was my intro to WCW in general. It's like my Graceland, so to say.
Yeah, the King of Cable, which we're gonna crown on pay-per-view. I love that.
Pay-per-view was on cable.
Pay-per-view
You
was
need,
on,
you
it was
need a
on cable, yeah. Yeah, I
you
guess
need a
so.
cable to
Yeah,
get pay-per-view. I mean,
yeah.
WCW, I don't know. It's not as it didn't have quite the ring of the King of the Ring. So you had this tournament
Yeah.
final and you had Battle Bowl. There was a lot going on in WCW in '92.
It was,
a lot.
and Starrcade 92, like it had a couple of good matches, but it was mostly pretty bad. Like it did not get rated very highly, but they had a tag team match there. Let me actually, well, I'll go back and take a look at what else they had on. Oh, that's the wrong one. Oh, let me get into some of the comments. It said Sting and Vader tell a great David versus Goliath story. The desperation and Sting comes through in his moveset. The story is Vader gets tired and sloppy. Great match. Guy gives it a 9.0. And then another guy, his name is CM Funk, by the way. CM
I like
Funk.
it. Funk.
So Sting and Vader go at it again on WCW pay-per-view in this King of Cable, whatever that is. These two really went at it, and Sting gets his victory over Vader in one of the best matches in '92. And then a great commentary here from Jim Ross. Jesse is okay too, I guess. A truly violent match with stiff shots. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I like the duo of Jim Ross and Jesse Ventura, and I thought they added to both of the '92 Sting versus Vader matches. I thought they were great in these matches.
I like Jim and Jesse because again, that was my first team. But you could tell they don't like each other, and I think it kind of
Yeah.
helps give some like it's not like with Heenan and Monsoon would like fake hate each other, but you can kind of see through it. Like there's a legit like tension between those two, where they're like trying to one up each other the whole time, that I think kind of it adds another dimension to the commentary. Like Jesse and Tony liked each other. Like in '93 when Jim's gone, like you could tell that Jesse and Tony like get along, but they have like a WWF vibe to them. But this is different. I agree. It adds to it. Like, because there's no one better at creating drama in pro wrestling than Jim Ross. And like, God, these matches were all about drama. They were all about like Rocky Balboa stories, basically. Like Sting is Rocky in this, like trying to climb this unmovable mountain. It's good shit, man.
Yeah. So right after this match, so I think they went like a little over 20 minutes in that match, and it was a brutal match. And then right after that, they go into the Battle Bowl final battle royal, and it's a Van Hammer, Vader, Muta, Sting, Spivey, Steve Williams, Barry Windham, and Dustin Rose, and everybody had a match earlier that night. So and that match got 4.67 based on 14 votes.
So Sting and just worked this match. They also worked their Battle Bowl matches. The WCW lineup is so depleted. They all do like triple. Remember one? Do you remember who won the?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Sorry. Do you know who won this Battle Bowl?
I don't remember. No.
Muta
did. Oh, okay. Yeah, that was because they were working pretty heavily with New Japan back then. Even though I think Steve Williams is on this card, and he was All Japan, wasn't he?
He was All Japan. I believe this is Muto. I believe this is when Muto's, or no, he would win the NWA World Heavyweight title days after this. So he won Battle Bowl, and I believe they used that to him because then he challenges. I forget who the NWA champion was. Might have been Barry Windham. No, it's not Barry Windham. I forget who Muto. Oh, it's Chono. He challenges Chono, and I believe at the Dome. I believe he beats Chono at the a couple week later, and becomes the NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
Nice. Yeah, you know, I need to watch some of those old 90s New Japan matches because I'm it's kind of a blind spot for me. I watched a lot of 90s All Japan just because you know everybody talked about those matches so much, so I went back and made sure to watch those. But I never really checked out New Japan except for some of the big Muto matches, and I watched Rick Rude versus Chono at was that the Dome too that they did that?
I forget.
I can't remember, but I remember they did one in Japan that was amazing, and then they brought the match back to WCW.
G1, I think.
Oh, it was G1. Okay,
I think so. Yeah,
that's
good
funny.
stuff.
Yeah. So so they in '92 they did Great American Bash and Starrcade, and then they bring the match right back. It's a SuperBrawl 3 in 1993. Sorry, in February. Now I'm gonna try this, and I'm gonna hope that it's not gonna nuke our account. I'm going to show highlights, but without the sound. So let me mute the thing, and I'm not going to expand it, but this is Sting versus Vader in the White Castle of Fear strap match. JD, who was booking in 1993? Not the promoter, but who was doing the week-to-week booking that would have called this the White Castle of Fear?
Sting.
What was it? Because I thought it was Dusty.
Oh, no.
Ole, okay.
Ole is the booker here.
Yeah. But so this match, Vader versus Sting, it in the strap match essentially is a 8.16 and gets 4.25 stars from Uncle Dave. And they beat the holy hell out of them. This was the very first strap match that I've ever seen in my life, and it was tremendous.
Bro, this is like the best strap match ever. You can't tell me any different. I fucking love this match so much. These two, like everything I bitched about Sting and Nikita from a year and a half is completely the opposite here. Sting and Vader work so damn hard in a match that's really stupid. You know, a strap match in this concept is dumb as all hell, but his match is just freaking awesome. It's so good.
Yeah.
And it's a shame too, because like, is Ole and Sharon Stella are doing these little mini movies, and they've got the angry midget named Cheatham, and they get together like Sting. And you see these? Have you seen these?
Yes. I was gonna play the intro video that they had filmed because it was just so bad, but I was like, we'll get nuked. That's why I just played a little bit, like 20 seconds from Twitter with no sound, just so we can get some context of how hard they were hitting each other, and just how like they were on the inside going crazy, on the outside going crazy, just bell to bell, just badass match.
Yeah, Vader is in this like mountain cavernous. He's got all these like Jabba the Hutt almost is almost like in a Jabba's palace type. He's got all these scuzzy people in midgets' head, and then Sting comes and he challenges him to the White Castle of Fear. I remember thinking, White Castle of Fear? Why the fuck did they call it that? Like, because in 1993, White Castle is a very firmly established fast food restaurant in the United States. What an odd title for a match. It's a shame too, because I think sometimes the match at the era, people forgot how awesome the match was because the build and the name were so dumb. But it was good. This match is awesome.
Yeah, so I'll get some stills from the video. Here you go. You got Vader wearing like his fur coat, and like he's sitting in front of a bunch of food, him and Harley.
Yeah, it's like
Just
Job of the Hut. And Sting's got these Brian, he doesn't have the paint, but he shows up in a suit and these Brian ass glasses. So fucking weird. It's so weird.
JD, you're an expert. What's this comic book that we're looking at here on the right hand side? You see that?
Yeah, I do. It's mimicked off of it looks like it's mimicked off of an X-Men book. I can't tell really.
Okay. That's pretty cool though.
Yeah, it is. I like it. Because the White Castle of Fear, Stinger. God, I love Vader so much.
he's the greatest.
He is the greatest. Like, again, all monster champions should just emulate Vader. Because that run
Samoa Joe with his current run, he should just watch Vader from 1992-93 in WCW.
Kind of. I would be perfectly fine. Because Joe's got his own vibe though. Like, to be Vader, Joe just got to be Joe, right? If someone else becomes like a really hot monster, they should try Vader.
Yeah. So here, let's go to some of the comments. So again, Dave gave it 4 1/4. Cage Match gives it 8.16, and that's based off of it doesn't tell me 107 votes. So they say Sting versus Vader 393. I love these guys beating the hell out of each other. This wasn't their best match. As I thought the Starrcade match was the best, but still great. Okay, well here this guy gives it a 5. Hold on, this is T Law. It says really disappointing match between Sting and Vader. The match was slow and boring. What? And the blood and the action on the outside of the ring were good, but as soon as they came back in the ring, the match became dull again. Okay, I don't know about that guy.
He probably doesn't like the idea of a strap match.
Yeah. Zach Attack says he gives it a 9.0. So this is a classic match, just so fun to watch. I did not expect it to be this good. But it is pretty brutal as well. A very good match. And then this is right up our alley. Ignoring the dumb White Castle of Fear name. This was a really good match. Vader and Sting beat the hell out of each other pretty much the entire time. Vader proved in this match, like many others, he was one of the best big men when it came to selling for smaller opponents, and his willingness to take bumps. The strap shots he took on his back were brutal. Good on WCW not going the obvious route and having Sting win as well, which was the usual par for the course and blow-off matches back then. Great ending to the card overall, especially after the 2 previous matches. So that is a hell of a 3-match series between these guys. And it really cemented Vader as a top guy in North America, I would say, because he was already a top guy in the in Japan, but now he's a top guy in North America, and it was because of his feud with Sting.
Sting made him, right? Especially because Vader wins the rubber match. I remember watching this, my first pay-per-view I got for WCW, convinced Sting was going to win the title. Nope. Vader keeps it.
Yeah.
And like, again, that's just how giving Sting has always been. Like a lesser baby face, say Hulk Hogan, would have made sure to eat Vader alive and just kill all his momentum. No, Sting lets Vader go over, right? They keep Vader strong, and he has this epic run and goes on to have this amazing feud with Mick Foley. He feuds with Mick Foley, Sting, and Davey Boy Smith at the same time in 93. It's awesome.
Yeah, very awesome. Well, Sting and Vader, they actually had between 1991 and 1994, they had 23 matches. Most of them were some variation of tag matches. The first one was the first time they were ever in the ring with each other was actually the Chamber of Horrors match in at Havoc 91. Yeah. So they fight and they did some television like main events, but the 3 big pay-per-views were Great American Bash 92, Starrcade 92, SuperBrawl 3 in 1993, and then in 1994 they actually have a match on Slamboree. I'm trying to find it. Slamboree. Yeah, Slamboree 1994, the International World Heavyweight Title match. Sting defeats Vader 1354 in Pennsylvania. Legends Reunion. I actually remember that show quite well.
Me too.
Yeah, and let's see. Let's just see what the cage match rating for that one was. Just for shits and giggles. I remember it being a really good match, but I don't think it was to the par that. Yeah, it was 3 1/4. So they're starting to WCW is starting to kind of wind Vader down in like 1994. He ends up jobbing to Hogan in 95, and then he makes, or was it 95 or 94?
It's end of 95. No, I'm sorry, it's 90. It's summer of 95.
Yeah.
So after, it was crazy. After Flair Hogan, they had a nice thing with Hogan versus Vader, and you hit up Hogan's alley, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid of him. Didn't want to work with him.
Hogan didn't like that Vader was stiff, which is pretty hilarious because when Hogan goes to Japan, like he lets those guys tee off on him. He'll do whatever the Japanese guys want. Like his matches with Muta were awesome. Hogan and Muta, but for some reason he just would not let Vader hit him. So they actually have some pretty fucking Barney style matches, man.
This was afraid. He just thought Vader would kill him.
Yeah.
Right? Because Vader beat the hell out of people, and he probably Hogan up. And shame, because it should have been a Starrcade main event, right? That should have been a huge. But it gets. God, 95 95 Pro Wrestling atrocious overall.
Yeah. So Hogan essentially kills Vader's career in WCW. He goes to WWF, doesn't have much more success there, and then eventually makes his way back to Japan. He does. I think he goes back to All Japan, and then he ends up in Noah for a little bit, and yeah, he does All Japan, and then I know he ends up at Noah, and he actually has some really good years there back in Japan, and then he was pretty much toast after that.
Dude, he has his comeback run in Japan where he feuds with Misawa over the Triple Crown title, and he is like some of the best work of his career. And he actually names the Noah belt the Crown Vader.
Yeah, he was. So did and JD, you were cutting out a little bit there.
God damn it!
So it's okay. It's okay. Vader named the Noah title the Global Honor Crown, so he named that title. Now I guess Michael, you know the history of Noah a little bit better than me, and maybe this is a better question for Justin. Was Vader part of that exodus from All Japan to Noah, or did he just end up going to Noah later?
He's I apologize, my internet kills. He is part of the exit. He's part of the exodus because the exodus is just the Japanese town. But okay. Vader does follow. Because I think I might have missed this. I said in All Japan in '99, Vader had this fucking amazing feud over the Triple Crown.
Yeah,
that's just amazing. And so Vader was pretty loyal to Misawa, and he becomes him and Scorpio first GHC tag team champions. So Vader's like kind of done at that point, but he's one of the first gaijin to work in Noah.
Yeah. Well, incredible run. I think they had an incredible feud, and if we were ranking the feuds between Vader and between us of all the Sting's feuds, in my humble opinion, I'm going to put Vader right at number 2 behind Flair.
I agree.
I just love their matches and I love their chemistry. And then JD and I, after the show, we will discuss the next one we want to go to, because I'm thinking, because we got Cactus Jack, I thought was a really good feud. We can go talk about some of his TNA stuff if we wanted to. He had some good stuff in TNA. It doesn't have to be a feud. We can just talk about different runs.
I like the Dangerous Alliance feud, right? Because that was when they tried to bring back the Horsemen, right? The new variation of Horsemen. So that leads into Sting and Rude. It leads into the War Games match ever. Like, yeah. I like early 90s Sting. I think early 90s Sting is severely underrated. So anyway, man, whatever you want to go, I can go. Okay, well, we will discuss and we will nail it down. Or if you guys have a suggestion, hit us up. Thank you for being subscribers. I'm gonna put this on YouTube eventually, not anytime soon, but eventually, and hopefully YouTube doesn't nuke it. So, so if it does, I'll just pull it down and upload the whole thing to Patreon. But this was fun, man. We're gonna do it again next week. Thank you everybody for checking us out right here on the Mike and JD Show channel.
And I no longer have the Vader music queued up, so we're going to kick it to AJ Styles. And until next time, mahalo.
Get ready to fly.